I'm not interested. Akaza tilted his head with closed-lidded smile. You wouldn't have even heard what I was offering you. And yet you already deny it? Yeah, that's right, I retorted, gathering my loose dagger from the grass in which I just got up from. And if you don't mind, I'll be leaving now. I've had enough embarrassment for one day. I don't want to make some idiotic deal with my stalker, nor did I feel like bantering any longer with him. And more than anything, I just wanted to go to sleep. He stood there silent as I picked up my thrown about things, my insides still churning with embarrassment, along with a deep slash in my leg and other bruises. I was in enough pain already. The fire was dying, and the small flames getting smaller and smaller the way my will to fight was. And soon enough, we both winked out. A cool breeze filled the silence that took over, the wind whistling past my ears. I knew his eyes were still on me, and that they had been for the last few days. But what I still had no idea was why. I'm sure it had to do with the deal, but he sure is stupid to think that I would accept anything from him after what he did, even if my curiosity was still talking up a good amount of my thoughts. After gathering my things, I began to walk away without another word. The moon high and the darkness in the area was absolute. I didn't hear his footsteps, but I could tell he was trailing me. Are you sure you don't want to hear? I think you'd find it to your advantage, you know, he said, coming to walk beside me in a simple stroll, as if the two of us hadn't just been at each other's throats a few minutes ago. I barely let out a laugh. You must really have nothing better to do if you're still going to follow me around. Back into the forest, it was almost impossible to see due to the lack of firelight that kept our vision all right. Though Akaza seemed to have no trouble mending through the bushes beside me. He said, crossing his arms as he walked. You may actually be right about that. I arched a brow, giving him a sidelong glance, my anger finally simmering down. In its place, however, was an incredible exhaustion. Well, go ahead. Apparently I'm not capable of stopping you, so be my guest. I gestured with my hand carelessly, though you'll most likely grow bored since all I'm going to do is sleep for days on end. He stayed silent for a moment, a small smile still upon his lips as he shook his head with a scoff. I almost forgot you would need rest after all that. I frowned. Any normal person would. He gave me a look that told me he didn't exactly apply to him. However, what was that supposed to mean? I wanted to ask, but unfortunately, my shoe caught onto something that I couldn't see in the dark of the night. I cursed under my breath as I stumbled. The deep slash on my leg screamed in response as I gritted my teeth in pain, taking in a deep breath. Could I stop embarrassing myself for the rest of the night? That would be most greatly appreciated. Sorry about that, he said, and I would have thought it was genuine if it weren't for the slightest hint of mockery that laced his slurty voice. I looked away, crossing my arms and picking up my pace. Right, I'm sure you are. Can't he just go already? You have considerable strength, Ian. I stopped my walking, turning to face him. My leg was beginning to hurt so badly I was losing feeling in my thigh. Apparently not enough, I retorted, yet cursed myself for wincing unwillingly. I prayed Akaza wouldn't notice. That may be so, he said with a growing smile, but that fact can change. I continued to walk in response. Honestly, I don't give a flying shit about strength right now. All I want to do is sleep. I had no idea he couldn't even the slightest bit tired after all that. There's a small deserted village near here. I'm going to crash there. No clue why I was telling him all this, but my brain felt as tired as my body at this point. A small village? His voice took a serious note. I eyed him from beside me, ducking underneath a branch. Yeah, just on the outskirts of this huge-ass forest. I paused. I'm surprised you didn't notice it on our little trip together. His expression didn't change. It was nothing worth noting. I didn't respond. I was too tired to form the words. I was almost there. I wouldn't recommend going there, he said suddenly. I looked over at him to see his face shift, an odd look taking hold. I groaned inwardly. And why not? He wouldn't tell me. Just don't. I'm sorry, but forgive me if I take your word for it. You just beat me half to death 10 minutes ago. Yin, he warned, grabbing onto my arm and pulling me close. You're going to listen to me. My heart dropped, and I didn't know how to react at this point in his change of demeanor. I did my best to snap out of it. Get your hand off me, I said with a deadly calm, and to my surprise, he let go immediately. The bushes rested nearby, and my instincts perked up, my hands automatically flexing. Was someone there? Damn it, he snarled, looking around in a sort of anger panic. You were lucky not to have run into any until now. His voice trailed off at the sound getting closer. Run into what? Before I knew what was happening, Akaza's tattooed figure was in front of me, pushing me back into the force I wasn't ready for, causing my exhaustion-filled body to collapse behind him. The hell? And then a yell sound, a powerful one full of anger and desperation. As I got to my feet, blade slid free from my palm once again at the second. It hadn't been a second since I was down, but after getting up, I recognized Akaza was gone. My eyes dashed across rapidly, my heart racing, increasing. Any source of exhaustion that coated my bones were gone immediately. Another roar sound, an angry one before. As I winced at the power it had, still frozen in my spot, I couldn't tell where it was coming from. The second seemed to reverberate around me. A laugh joined in, although with powerful source that seemed to shake the entire forest. Damn it all to hell, I thought. I had no clue where Akaza had gone, but I didn't care enough to find out, and so I bolted. Speed came back to me easily, especially with the threat of the earth shattering power I felt nearby. Yet my wounds and bruises made it a lot harder to concentrate. I knew how to keep quiet, to calm my speed of my heart rate. Something else was here, and I had a very strong sense that it wasn't human. Nothing human could do something that powerful. Yet I was too busy running to try and figure out what logic that was happening. Something, a gut feeling, was telling me to run was my only option. The trees shook with whatever was behind me as I ran, birds flying about in a flurry of fear. I pushed past a thickery bush, jumping over logs into silent movements, while still trying to analyze what was going on, trying to locate the source of this ungodly powder. It wasn't long before I reached the outskirts of the village, as well as the deserted village. I checked my surroundings, cursing the fact that my leg was bleeding a hell of a lot more now, the cut on my thigh feeling even worse than before. Yet, I still pushed through, that gut feeling telling me once again that if I didn't run, I would surely meet my end. So, I made my way over to the town, almost no light to be found of the dead of night. It was as if no one had stepped foot here in the last decade. I didn't think much of it, though, as I made my way for one of the multiple stranded houses that were scattered about. I pushed through one of the doors, still using every bit of training I had not to make even a slightest sound. Even this far away, I could still hear and feel the vibrations that came from the forest still. Was Akaza there? No. I had to remember his skills, the sheer power that I'd felt from anyone before. Even though he looked to be my age, he could have taken any of a fierce older man I'd face in a matter of seconds. Whatever was happening in the forest, one thing I knew was for certain was that my tattoo stalker was alive, wherever he was. I collapsed, hunched by the same wall that held the door. If anyone were to come in, I would take them down before they took their first step in. I hissed, putting my leg out in front of me, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from pain. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been hurt so badly. That goddamn fight wore me out more than I thought. Gritting my teeth, I peeled back the bits of my clothes before ripping a piece off. biting my sleeve to keep quiet as I began applying pressure to the wound. Holy mother of shit! The pain was excruciating, but I knew that if I didn't patch this up, I would lose too much blood. I pressed down, applying as much pressure as I could. I couldn't patch this up right away. I tied the piece of cloth around as tight as I could, pressing down until the bleeding halted somewhat. Due to my focus on my thigh, I hadn't even noticed even the power that had been pulsating around the ground had stopped. I frowned, the town going almost entirely still. Yet somehow, my instincts told me to keep my guard up just in case. And then it happened. Though the wall itself, and not the door like I'd been prepared for, something came crashing through it beside me, and I was on my feet before the dust even cleared, despite the pain. It was dark. I couldn't make out what it was again. My gut told me that whatever it was not human, especially when a defeating growl sounded from it. Damn it, I can't fight properly in this condition. As much as I hated running, I knew that my chances were. I had no fucking clue what was going on, but I didn't particularly care enough to find out. My first step, however, my leg collapsed, and the pain taking a hold a lot more powerful than I expected. Move, you goddamn idiot! I cried out in pain, especially when I was suddenly grabbed by the hand of enormous strength. Of all places to take a hold of, it had to be my hair that was being pulled. My eyes watered, and as embarrassing as it was to cry out again, I couldn't help it. Whoever it was that had me wasn't showing any mercy, holding back in the slightest. They dragged me through the open rubble and out of the house I'd been taking temporary refuge in. I couldn't get out of this. It was unbearable, the amount of pure strength they had on me. It stopped. You were trained to deal with this. You know how to get out. My vision still blurred. I tried to ignore the way it dragged me across the gravel of the path, holding my breath by means of dealing with the pain. Clearing my eyesight, I looked around to finally see what was holding me. I couldn't tell whether it was human or monster, but it seemed to be something born entirely out of a nightmare, a horror story to tell children by means of making themselves believe. It had 2 faces, multiple arms that were colored in a dark green. Not only that, horns poked out of his hair, which only added onto the massive height. He had to be at least 6 feet tall. His hand, still pulling me by my hair, was twice the size of my head. For the first time in a long time, I was utterly terrified. A type of fear that went past freezing up in horror. No, instead, every instinct I had drilled into me cried out for me to get away. My body listened to that voice. Without even realizing what I had done, I had used his grip on me to get my advantage. I managed to get my feet onto the solid ground, allowing me to push myself up, flipping onto the meat of his arm. The entire thing had to be larger than my own body. I managed to land on top of it, not something I would have done if it was for a normal-sized opponent, but I made do with what I had. He roared in what I could only imagine was annoyance. Yet even with my luck of getting my own advantage, it didn't last long, because soon enough his other arm came right after me. Like a barreling force I had no hope of enduring. He grabbed me by the hair once again, and I yelped in suddenness. His muddy eyes narrowed in rage as he dragged me off his arm. Despite all of my efforts of hanging on with my life, and there it was again, for a second time tonight, the same feeling as when I was trapped under Akaza. I was utterly useless. Idiot, I thought to myself. I was a fool for ever believing I could defeat something like this. Turns out, I truly wasn't the best. But before I could think any more of the matter, the ground began to shake, an unfamiliar rumble of the earth that halted both me and the monster that still held me. And then something appeared to my right. Slap dab in the middle of the graveled area, a cloud of dust arose from the powerful boom. Even though the dust had cleared, a certain pair of golden eyes were revealed through the mess. My own eyes widened in response, a warning coursing through me. Why? I had no idea. Though Akaza had nearly killed me earlier, something told me he was on my side this time. I couldn't even get my scream before he moved. A second ago, I had been in his grasp of the monster, and the second, I was let go, falling to the ground. I looked up despite my foggy vision, due to the tears and as well as the dust that arose from Akaza's arrival. The monster's arm had been taken clear off. It wasn't sure somehow, but it was gone. And there was Akaza, to which my gaze fell as he tore into the monster. His fist protruded through his abdomen and upwards. I stared, not knowing how to react, as the dark green demon roared in pain, Akaza twisting his insides, and even with a size comparison, my tattooed stalker had the 8-foot-tall beast completely immobilized. You idiots! Akaza seethed, the veins in his revealed body popping with the force of his strength. You all believe you know what you're doing? Coming here to take her? His voice had a sense of urge to it, pure annoyance. My vision began to blur once again, and my eyelids closing on their own. No, damn it, no. You aren't passing out now. I looked down at my thigh, my clothing stained in dried blood. I looked up back at Akaza, though I couldn't tell what he was doing or what was happening. All I saw was a pink-haired figure moving about in a flash, before my eyes drifted closed completely. No matter how hard I tried to keep them open, to keep myself aware, the way that I was told to do. But my consciousness slipped away before I even could say a word.